Now, we heard a little in the business news, and we've been talking generally about the high-speed rail link and that decision that has been made today, giving the go-ahead of that link initially between London and Birmingham. Of course, let's get reaction to the proposals, because they certainly divide opinion. Our chief political correspondent, Norman Smith, has more on all of that. Hello, Norman.
Yeah, we will be getting a statement just after 3:30 from the Transport Secretary, Justine Greening, confirming that the government does intend to press ahead with the high-speed rail link from London to Birmingham. And of course the plan is then to move beyond that to London and Manchester, and who knows, maybe north still to Scotland. But an awful lot of political and financial and maybe legal hurdles to be overcome before that happens. Well, to consider all that, I'm joined by two supporters of the move and one opponent. Pete Waterman, the record producer, a prominent campaigner in favour of it. Andrew Adonis, former Labour Transport Secretary, also in favour of it. And Richard Wellings from the Institute of Economic Affairs, not in favour of it. Why not?
I think this is a hugely expensive mistake. Basically, the economic case for HS2 is based on a series of flawed assumptions about time savings, passenger numbers and competition, and it's going to come at an enormous expense to taxpayers. So by the time it reaches Manchester and Leeds, it's going to cost the average household around £1,000. It's going to do immense economic damage.
Andrew Adonis, I suppose many people will wonder, in these straitened economic times, can we really afford to spend billions just to save half an hour to get to Birmingham?
There is no free lunch here. We have two choices. Either we build this new line with state-of-the-art technology and very high capacity, or we do a classic British patch and mend of a Victorian railway that is nearly 200 years old. We have just spent £10 billion upgrading the West Coast Main Line, far more than was envisaged, because it's effectively open heart surgery on a 200-year-old railway. It's high time we did what the rest of the developed world has done and build to modern technology, not seek to patch and mend Victorian technology, probably costing more in the process.
Pete Waterman, I suppose many people will say, well, that's fine, but it's going to take, another 12 years before anyone gets to go on this train. Why not simply upgrade, try and improve what we have and try and get things going sooner?
It's only a 5-year fix. I mean, that's only going to fix it for 5 years and then you're back to the same problem. You know, that's what Lord Adonis is saying. We constantly patch and fix. Well, no longer can we patch and fix. I mean, there is no economic argument. It doesn't make sense. Railways have never made sense. You know, if we go back to 1835, nobody sat down with a slide rule and, you know, came up with complicated issues. They just said, if we build this railway, somebody will want to use it. And that's exactly what happened.
But this particular railway, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not going to go into the centre of Birmingham.
Yes, it does.
It
yes.
does.
Yes, it goes into. Yes, it does.
It's about a 10-minute walk.
No, it doesn't. It goes to the original station. It goes to Curzon Street. That's the original Birmingham station.
People getting a train into New Street from different areas are then going to have to get their bags and get off the train and walk 10 minutes to the high-speed station.
It'll all be integrated into one complex.
Okay,
there'll also be a junction at Birmingham International with the airport, the NEC, the West Coast Main Line.
It's not actually the airport, though. It's a fair old hike from the airport.
No, it's not actually
the airport.
It's all part of the same complex. It'll produce very great improvements in the connectivity which is available to passengers too.
Let's just tackle one of the other arguments which is put for high-speed rail, the green argument. Do you accept that it will be more environmentally friendly, better for the environment than building new motorways and planes and all that sort of thing?
No, I mean, high-speed trains, they use an immense amount of energy because of the sheer speed. And as we've seen, cars getting more and more efficient, whereas a lot of trains haven't been improving that much. So in turn, it's going to draw a disproportionate amount of energy from the national grid, so it's very, very bad for the environment.
What Richard has said is straightforwardly factually inaccurate. Trains use only a fraction of the carbon of cars or planes. That is a straight fact.
No,
that's true of high-speed trains too. Right. The green argument is very strong if you need the extra capacity. If you stop people travelling, or do what Richard would do, which is to limit the capacity so you price everybody out of the market and only the rich can afford to travel, then of course that is a greener alternative. But if you're going to provide new infrastructure, then there is no free lunch here. It has to be done either by trains, planes or cars, and trains are by far the most
Let me bring Pete Waterman in.
Well, the other problem we've got with a green argument, if you take the M6 through Cheshire, which is where I live, we're already at 150, and by 2015 we're at 176% capacity. You know, we can't put any more roads in. So, I mean, you know, cars may become more efficient, but you're still burning more fuel than any train does.
Let's just touch on the politics then. I mean, Richard, there's a way to go here. There will be legal challenges. There are Conservative MPs who are unhappy about this. Do you accept that, given there is cross-party support, this is going to happen?
No, I don't. I think the real uncertainty is about the economy, and if we do get a persistent slump, as seems likely, then there will have to be further emergency spending cuts. And I think because HS2 is so unpopular with the electorate, this could be quite an easy cut to make, maybe for the next government.
Andrew Adonis,
it's not unpopular. All the polls show that there's very strong support for HS2 and for modernising our transport infrastructure. And most people understand that one of our chronic weaknesses as a country has been our failure to modernise our transport infrastructure over the years. That is the reason why we have such poor intercity connections at the moment.
But let me just ask you about the politics of this, if I may. I mean, as I understand it, the legislation may not be introduced until 2013, 2014. Creeping near an election, if there are protests in sensitive constituencies, you could see how a government might be tempted to body swerve this.
It's very important that the government gets a move on. Having taken this decision now, there's absolutely no point in dithering and hanging about. We must do something which is very rare for us as a country. Having decided collectively to embark on a big infrastructure project, we should simply do it without waiting until we're all dead before it happens.
Pete Waterman, I mean, let me ask the non-politician then. I mean, it is the case when we have difficult decisions as a country, by and large, the temptation is to hoof them off into the middle distance. You think of long-term care, House of Lords reform, any difficult decision, crikey, let's not do it too soon.
This is a business decision. It's for Britain, Britain Limited. We can't afford not to do it. You know, if you're a business and you went through the economic argument with the downturn, what do? You build your way out of it. You don't suddenly shrink in and let it all collapse on you. You know, you've got to go forward. We have to literally break this north-south divide. We have to. There is no choice.
Yeah, well, that's another of the arguments which the government put, that actually this will, if you like, help the rest of Britain, stop us being so London-dominated, London-centric. Do you accept at least that argument? It'll help go some way to boost the regions.
No, I think the evidence for that's extremely weak. I mean, look at Doncaster, which has had a very quick link to London for several decades now, and it remains one of the poorest towns in England with very high rates of worklessness. So it's a very complex picture, and I don't think the regeneration of the North can wait till 2033.
I mean, I suppose the other argument, Andrew Adonis, is people in Birmingham might think, crikey, I can work in London, the train's so quick, and actually might draw resources away from the regions.
This will be a win-win. It will boost economic activity at both ends, which of course is the story of big transport improvements down the ages. The case for this is immensely strong. If we don't build this high-speed line, we will end up in classic British fashion, spending even more on a patch and mend, producing fewer benefits. I'm delighted the government has now finally bitten the bullet. It should now get on with the legislation so that we can get this line built as soon as possible. In terms of the deficit, as soon as possible, this is England, remember, as soon as possible we'll start building in 2017. So there isn't a problem about this sort of crowding out big spending over the next few years. This is a medium to long-term project to give Britain the infrastructure it will need for the second third of the 21st century.
And for me, in 1970, when we brought the electrics in for the 1 hour and 20-minute service from Birmingham, I commuted every single day from Coventry and could do London to Coventry in an hour. I earned £5,000 in London, which was a fortune by Coventry standards, and bought a beautiful house out in the countryside. So actually, you're talking to the wrong bloke, because I'd seen this work. And then I moved to Warrington. You know, we improved the West Coast. I can now do Warrington in under 2 hours. So this is, I can tell you this works. Okay. Build it and we can do it.
Okay, so there's hope ahead for commuters suffering from travel hell, I guess. Pete Waterman, Andrew Adonis and Richard Wellings, thanks so much. Well, that argument, of course, is obviously going to percolate on, and we do have an awfully long way to go, because, as I was saying, the legislation on this is likely to be at the back end of this Parliament. So all sorts of fun and games, I imagine, in the run-up to a general election.